and we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
Happy New Year. I'm Ann Northrup.
I forgot my noisemakers.
Thank heavens. We will be the noisemakers.
I thought it might hurt the ears of the control room.
Well, that was last night, or even earlier for some viewers. We're coming to you on January 1st, or even a few days later. But either way, it's 2015, and Happy New Year.
But things kept happening in the LGBT world. It looks like marriages will go forward in Florida on January 6th, though the Attorney General there is still arguing against them.
She'll never give up, never give up, never give up that, for those of you who remember the old philosopher. The Fifth Circuit will take up same-sex marriage cases from Louisiana and Mississippi and Texas, I believe, on January 9th. Oral arguments then.
And that circuit also includes Missouri, Arkansas, and yeah, isn't it?
Well, that I know that's in the 8th Circuit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're looking at the map, and the
Never
map's looking
mind.
good, folks. Let
Never
me tell
mind.
you, the map's looking pretty good. The only thing that's going to stop this is if you know, a liberal justice dies and has to be replaced. The Salt Lake Tribune has named its Utahns of the Year.
And we like them. A Republican member of Congress embraces her transgender son. We'll show you a pretty moving little local news tape on that.
In Rhode Island, there was a blow to phony religious liberty claims brought by anti-gay discriminators. This is a big case.
The persecution of LGBT people across Africa in Egypt, the Gambia, and Uganda is intensifying.
Eminem. I always have trouble saying this young man's name. Eminem.
Eminem.
Eminem?
Yeah.
All right, Eminem. This rap artist, the white guy. You know who he is. Anyway, he came out in a controversial movie. You've seen this by now.
Came out in quotes.
Yes.
The author of the story Brokeback Mountain says she sometimes regrets having written it. We'll tell you all about that.
So let's start with Florida, where everybody's
Florida.
getting excited. And, you know, as you know, federal Judge Hinkle had made a ruling that the law was unconstitutional. He said that my stay expires on January 5th, late on the 5th. Marriages could commence on the 6th. The 11th Circuit would not
Extend the stay.
Extend the stay. The United States Supreme Court would not extend the stay.
But
so we know that some marriages are going to start on the 6th.
Yeah, we're still waiting for a ruling from him on another issue. The debate has been, did his original ruling mean that marriage would become legal in Florida only in one county and maybe, in fact, only for one couple?
That's right.
One couple. Very special. But there's been argument back and forth about whether, in fact, it should be broader than that. And so Judge Hinkle said, all right, we can't have this confusion. I will decide whether it's limited to one county or one couple or applies across the state. Submit arguments to me by a couple of days ago. We are waiting for his ruling on that. We don't have it yet. You may have it by the time you see this program. We are taping on December 30th. Yes, marriages will start on January 6th. I was a little worried that they'd find a way to stop them, but so far so good. But we don't know whether they will start in a limited way or, in fact, across the state.
Well, a whole bunch of big corporations weighed in on our side as these legal briefs were flying back and forth, including Amazon, AT&T, GE, Marriott, the Mormon-owned hotel chain.
Oh, they've been very gay-friendly for quite a while.
All I'm saying is that, corporate America, say what you want about it, and I'm not very fond of the way they do business in many cases, has sort of led the way on a lot of gay rights issues because it's been good business.
It's good business for them. They don't want to cut out any part of their potential customer base. And they buy into this idea that we have money to spend. Some do, some don't.
Well, and that we have allies as
exactly,
well.
Exactly.
Not just us, because we're a tiny little group here in the gay USA. Except that Florida is bigger than it was before. It is now our third most populous state. New York has lost its place as the third most populous state. I remember when we were #1 when I was a kid. And then California, then
I could
Texas.
say New York's going downhill in all sorts of ways, but that would only be one of them. Meanwhile, this argument over how many people get to marry in Florida is interesting. And last week we told you that a right-wing legal group had sent a letter to all the county clerks in Florida saying, don't you dare issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples. That's illegal.
You're going to jail.
The ban's only been overturned in that one county, and the coppers will come after you. Well, then our side, in Nadine Smith at Equality Florida and the National Center for Lesbian Rights, wrote a contrasting legal memo to all the county clerks this last week, countering the arguments of the right-wing law firm, and said that, in fact, county clerks are compelled and certainly permitted to issue licenses to everyone.
Judge Hinkle, I hope you've made your ruling and sorted all this out and stopped the confusion. Come on, we're all trying to enjoy the new year.
But meanwhile, all this is taking place as the case is still under appeal to the 11th Circuit, and Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, who, by the way, is living with a male partner, unmarried, and that is technically illegal in Florida.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, let's put the cuffs on her.
There's been talk of that.
And if she marries him,
yeah,
it'll be her third marriage. The woman who won't stop the sacredness of marriage. So she's opposing us even having one.
That's correct. Well, God is against same-sex marriage.
But God is, Jesus was against divorce.
Well, that's just one man's voice.
one man's God.
At any rate, this is all...
These are serious issues, folks. We make jokes.
And a few days after marriage in some form is expected to start in Florida, a couple of things are happening on January 9th for you to keep an eye on. One is the oral arguments in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Now, this is going to be the Louisiana marriage case and the Mississippi case, and you say the Texas case as well. It's going to be heard by a panel that doesn't look very promising.
Oh, they are all
wait a minute. Wait a minute. A Reagan appointee. I know some of the Reagan appointees have ruled our way.
Yes.
And Bush appointees.
Yes.
But this one struck down affirmative action at the University of Texas, and another Reagan appointee who upheld a display of the Ten Commandments in the Texas state capitol. Plus an African-American Obama appointee who is a Seventh-day Adventist. We don't know if he's a liberal Seventh-day Adventist or if he's following the religion.
I do remember that my prediction, not that this matters to anyone in the world, for months has been that the Fifth Circuit was where we were likely to have trouble. I thought we'd have a better chance in the Sixth Circuit than the Fifth Circuit, and, you know, we lost the Sixth Circuit.
We did.
So we could lose the Fifth Circuit, but that's just more reason. Well, we won't hear about their decision for a while. It's just oral arguments on the 9th. But meanwhile, the Supreme Court will be meeting among themselves privately in chambers in one of their periodic conferences on January 9th. And they will be discussing what cases to take for the spring term. And some of the cases that are prepared and on their docket for consideration are the cases from the Sixth Circuit, the Tennessee, Kentucky, Michigan, and Ohio cases, where we did lose in the Sixth Circuit.
We lost in the circuit, but we won the cases at the trial level.
We did, but at the Sixth Circuit, we lost. We are losers at the moment in those cases. Yes. And what's the other one that they're going to consider there for taking?
I thought it was a direct appeal of one that hadn't been heard by
Louisiana, maybe.
I think so.
Yes. Plus which others are trying to get in on that, like Butch Otter of Idaho, who keeps...
The governor.
Yes, who keeps trying to insert
Governor Butch Otter.
But it's
That is his name.
it's the Louisiana and the Sixth Circuit cases that have been fully briefed to the Supreme Court and therefore are eligible for hearing. So that we should hear about fairly shortly after they talk on January 9th, just as the last time they met in conference and were considering appeals from the right wing of the cases we won in other circuits, they announced almost immediately that they were rejecting hearing those appeals.
Well, not to get into the tea leaves, because they can do anything they want, including doing nothing at that meeting.
Sure.
But the likelihood is they're going to take a case, they're going to try to resolve it, and we're probably going to get some kind of a decision by June. The likelihood is.
Yes, I wouldn't bet against that,
No.
but I would emphasize that
Anything can happen.
Anything.
So be prepared.
yeah, including they could take the cases and rule against us.
And send vitamin pills to Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Maybe a gift certificate for some massage. So all of this stuff is still hot in 2015, and we have, for those of you who complain that we pay too much attention to marriage news, I'll repeat, it's a marker for everything else. It's a doorway into equality and larger rights, and it's where the action is.
And that's sort of what happened in Utah, where the Salt Lake Tribune named their Utahns of the Year, and here's a picture of them. We got a picture of them. They are the plaintiffs in the same-sex marriage case in Utah, which was such a breakthrough. Yeah. Well, I mean, when Utah happened, you could have knocked me over with a feather. A lot of people said that. Utah. And that really had a big effect on the whole country. Well, the people who were
I would say Oklahoma.
The people in that picture were Derek Kitchen and Moody Speity. I'm sorry to say his last name wrong, S-B-E-I-T-Y. Karen Archer and Kate Call, and Lori Wood and Cody Partridge. The editorial said, forever, their names will be associated with a tidal wave of change that swept the country until they got to Oklahoma.
Which was about 2 days later.
Well, all right.
And that was plaintiffs, a lesbian couple who had filed 10 years earlier.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we done with marriage?
I think so.
My favorite story of the week is what came out of Rhode Island.
Well,
now,
that's because you have family in Rhode Island.
I do now. They emigrated there from Long Island to Rhode Island. Firefighters, it's because of how I care about these religious liberty things.
Of course.
Firefighters there were forced to drive a fire truck at a pride parade in Providence.
About 12 years ago.
2001.
13, 14.
And they sued, claiming that they had to endure sexual harassment in the parade and from coworkers afterwards who were making jokes about them. So the state
Welcome to our lives.
So the state Supreme Court just ruled against them. Justice William Robinson writing, and I think it's important to quote this. This court is unaware of any pertinent legal authority in support of the proposition that in such specific circumstances, employees' rights are violated if they happen to possess religious objections to the beliefs of the group with which an otherwise legitimate work assignment requires brief interaction.
Well, sure. I mean, if you rule in the favor of the firefighters having had their religious or free speech rights abridged, then you open the door to, so if you save a gay person in a fire, and people interpret that as you supporting gay rights, are you allowed to refuse that assignment in your work? It's ridiculous.
Why would you do that? Wouldn't you want to keep them alive so that you could save them for Jesus? I mean,
we could go any number of ways on that.
We could go on and on. And most of these people raising these kinds of religious objections are not sincere. They're just anti-gay bigots.
Exactly.
And I say that flatly because if you test their religious beliefs and find out the other things that they might be willing to do that compromise Christian teachings, you find out.
But I will say that there have been a number of these cases. There was the big San Diego case. There have been cases like this around the country. And I always get a little nervous about it because I think superficially you might react originally by saying, well, sure, they should be able to refuse an assignment like that in a pride parade. And the fact that courts see through that and understand that that is a bad precedent to set and a bad legal standard is very reassuring and heartening. I'm
not saying some of these issues aren't a little complicated or are so simple. For instance, printers. I'm a printer. You come to me with what I judge to be a pornographic book.
Right.
And I don't want to publish those images. I don't have to. But the question is, would I stop it with gay pornography and I would accept it with straight pornography? Then I'm discriminating. And so what some of these bakers have said, who are, don't want to bake wedding cakes for gays, say, well, I'm just not going to bake wedding cakes. Okay, but other than that, it's prejudice.
Well, it is prejudice, but to what extent is prejudice allowed?
Well, the law, does grant certain kinds of religious exemptions for religious institutions so that they don't have to compromise their core religious beliefs.
Right.
But individuals who work in the public marketplace accept the civil law in terms of covering everything that they do.
Okay.
And if you don't like civil rights legislation in general, vote for Rand Paul. He doesn't believe in them either, on a libertarian point of view.
He backtracked on that.
Oh,
what do we think he really believes?
No, as he and his father both said the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was wrong. Are they for it now?
They got called on that, and Rand at least apologized and changed.
Rand, you are still going to get an ad when you're the candidate that talks about how you oppose the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
And a slight correction on a story from last week. We told you about the District of Columbia high school principal, the Woodrow Wilson High School out-gay principal who came out last year, and
to much celebration.
Yes, and was now fired on the grounds that his school had not performed well. He objected to that, but what we said was that he had been fired immediately midway through the year. It turns out that in fact he was offered the chance to stay through the year till June. The school board would have let him do that. He resigned immediately.
Oh, okay.
And decided to walk away.
All right. In Indiana, by the way, speaking of religious freedom, they are putting forward one of those freedom to discriminate bills, which its sponsors say is to protect religious liberty. It's another state like Arizona, Michigan, and Mississippi that does not protect LGBT rights in the first place, and then they want to give people the right to discriminate, which they already have the right to discriminate against us.
And do we feel discriminated?
Except in marriage in Indiana.
Do we feel discriminated against by the museum in D.C.?
Well, we heard this from a viewer.
Yeah.
That they went to the what do they call it?
Museum.
Yes, and that there was no gay stuff, no AIDS stuff. It's insane.
Big exhibit on the 80s and news coverage, nothing about AIDS. Nothing, a big civil rights thing, nothing about gay stuff.
Hey, I mean, they do have a small gay exhibit at the Museum of the City of New York, and I've been fighting with them over how terrible it is because it's so unrepresentative of the movement in New York. So these things are dicey.
Well, here's a better example of news coverage. We have heard for some time that Republican Congresswoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen from Florida has been the most gay-friendly member of Congress on the Republican side.
Sponsor of the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, which we're getting rid of next year.
And
for a better bill.
Word was that she had a transgender son. Well, the CBS local station in Miami, I think, did I think the first interview with the son and parents, and it's really quite charming and is better news coverage than is exhibited in the museum. And so somewhat in celebration of what turned out to be a very big year for transsexual and transgender news in 2014, we thought we would show you this piece profiling Ileana Ros-Lehtinen and her transgender son.
And she's the only member of Congress with a transgender child. And now for the first time on television, Ileana Ros-Lehtinen and her son, Rodrigo, are sharing their deeply personal story and opening up to CBS 4's Jim DeFede.
I came from a family where politics was very much talked about openly, calmly, with respect, on a regular basis.
Rodrigo Leighton is the oldest child of Republican Congresswoman Ileana Ross Leighton.
Engaging in that kind of conversation about political issues or things that might be controversial was not foreign in my family.
But Rodrigo hasn't always been Rodrigo. For most of his life, he was Amanda, an outgoing and funny child who went to Palmer Trinity High School. Amanda was in the drama club, the rock climbing team, and founded the school's chapter of Amnesty International. Amanda had come out to her parents as gay in high school, but it wasn't until she was in college that Amanda made the decision to begin living her life as a man.
Hello everyone, my name is Rodrigo. I am an organizing and training fellow with the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force.
I think coming out as transgender is really about coming out as your authentic self, coming out as the person you always knew you were, but no one else may have known. And now you're sharing that honesty with other people for the first time.
For Amanda, that moment of honesty with her parents came in 2007.
As parents, we wanted to make sure that Rigo understood that we're totally fine with it, and that we wanted to make sure that he was safe. We know Rigo as our child, whether it's Amanda or now as Rodrigo. He's our son. We're proud of him.
Dexter Leighton is Rodrigo's father. The former U.S. attorney in Miami is perhaps best known for indicting Panamanian strongman Manuel Noriega. He's also a decorated Army Ranger who bears the scars of war.
Well, you know, I remember back in my days in Vietnam. That's an era that I tend to measure a lot of things against, and I just didn't care what the person's orientation was when you put them on point. The test for putting somebody on point in a patrol was they were reliable and would perform.
We're very happy that our son is happy with who he is, and that's a blessing to us.
Never has the transgender community been more in the public spotlight. A Time magazine cover recently featured Laverne Cox, the transgender actress who stars in the series Orange is the New Black. And former Navy SEAL Christopher Beck is now Kristen Beck, author of the book Warrior Princess and the subject of a recent CNN documentary, Lady Valor.
No one ever met the real me. No one knew anything.
Now part of that growing wave. As the first transgender child of a member of Congress, he brings an awareness that might otherwise be missing.
There were so many Republican people I know, whether they were family friends of mine, whether they were friends I'd met through my mother's campaigns when I was growing up, and they're saying, you know what, I support you, and I support these rights, and this is an eye-opening experience.
A 2010 Miami Herald story first noted Ileana had a transgender son, suggesting Rigo's influence led her to become the first House Republican to support gay marriage. And she's also the only Republican on the 112-member LGBT Equality Caucus.
I have full confidence that she would have come to these pro-LGBT opinions, whether I happen to be transgender or not.
Ileana offers this advice to parents who may have a transgender son or daughter.
Don't freak out, stay calm, and don't be afraid. And love your child, because that person is your child, whether it's the person you wanted him or her to be or not. That's my advice to parents, is never reject your child. That's unconditional love, no matter what.
Very admirable, Jim, when you listen to the Congresswoman and her husband and the way the family has accepted who their son is for who he is. But I wonder if it was always so easy to accept him, or was it a bit of a journey for them to get to that point?
You know, Rodrigo, as I said in the piece, came out as gay in high school as Amanda, and then just sort of worked their way through it. It's funny, you know, that letter that Amanda wrote to her parents to explain that she was now going to be Rodrigo, in it she tried to detail as much as she could in it. She even included some pamphlets that she thought her parents would find helpful to sort of explain a little bit more about what transgender. But Ileana and Dexter both said that they really, from right away, felt that as long as Rodrigo knew who he was safe and healthy and secure, that they were going to support him.
Rodrigo's future, might it include a career in politics?
I think he's a little too shy. At least he's only 28 years old. You know, I forgot to mention his age in the piece. He's only 28 years old. He is a fundraiser on the West Coast for a gay rights organization. I don't know if we'll see him in politics. We might at some point. You know, it'll be interesting to see if he wants to even get involved in local politics. Miami-Dade County is going to be discussing whether or not to include transgender on their human rights ordinance, to extend it beyond not just just sexual orientation, but to transgender. They'll be voting that next month.
Fascinating story. Thanks very much for telling it to us, Jim DeFede.
It's a great story.
It is, and heartwarming, and great that they did it. We're going to show you in a little while transgender news from a very different part of the world, Uganda. But here's another headline. Janet Mock, transgender activist, has just become engaged to New York photographer Aaron Treadwell.
And I think Rodrigo's going to be fine as long as he doesn't express any support for the Castro regime. You could test your mother's tolerance if you do that. Now, not all Republicans are so tolerant. The new Republican House Majority Whip, by the time you see this, he may be out, not out of the closet, Steve Scalise from Louisiana, it was revealed that he spoke at a gathering of white supremacists in 2002, an organization founded by the Klan leader David Duke. The group's website is www.whitecivilrights.com. Scalise said he didn't know it was a racist group. So in addition to being racist, he's stupid.
Or a liar. But we'll see what the standards are in Louisiana because, of course, it's also the home of David Vitter, who was reelected to the U.S. Senate after being revealed to have been a client of a prostitution.
He said he was sorry, and Christians love that when you're sorry.
Well, this guy said he's sorry, too.
Well, sorry for what? He didn't know what he was doing.
He's still sorry.
Now, the people promoting the Keystone Pipeline want us to be sorry that we're not letting it through our heartland. They hope it will be, of course, I hope it's going to be killed by cheap gas, but the proponents are pushing an angle that Canada, who wants to ship their dirty tar sand fuel across the country, is gay-friendly, and the Arab states are not. They even have an, get this, they even have an OPECHatesGays.com website. That's taking pinkwashing to new heights.
Pinkwashing being advertised that you're friendly to gays to cover up your other heinous activities. Well, the people behind this effort are extremely right-wing Canadians.
And not very bright.
No.
But, you know, it's like the Koch brothers. You know, one of them went on and said, hey, we're pro-gay, we're pro-choice, all this kind of stuff. But the economic policies they push hurt tons of gay people, and they're crushing average Americans, and the right-wing nuts that they elect, and I don't think this can be said enough. It's not enough that David Koch says, I'm pro-gay. The people that he elects are anti-gay.
Exactly.
And anti-choice, because he doesn't care if he uses that issue.
And Paul Singer and the rest of them.
Yeah.
In New Jersey, out-gay member of the New Jersey Assembly, Tim Eustace, has introduced a bill to outlaw the gay panic defense. We'll see where he gets with that. That worked in California. In
Reading, Pennsylvania, the owner of the Red Star Saloon, the only LGBT saloon or bar in the area, has died. His name was Charles Sonny Bowles. He owned the place for 25 years. He was 80 years old, and sadly, the bar is now having to close.
Yeah. LGBT contingents have been marching in these anti-racism demonstrations around the country, in the aftermath of Ferguson and everything that's happened in Staten Island and the fight with cops who have been shooting people. 200 LGBT activists marched in San Francisco, blocking streets and on Christmas Eve.
I mean, we were all horrified here by the murder of the two cops in cold blood. Horrible, 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 and nothing, of course, but sympathy for them. And then you see police turning their backs on the mayor as if he's responsible for it, and that's an outrage.
It is.
And it undermines, I mean, you know, police always want to be respected by us, you know, obviously didn't care for being protested against, but we're trying to reform, we're part of this movement. We're trying to reform the police so that it works not just for us, but for them.
Right.
You know? I mean, they can't be happy with some of the things they've been forced to do under Giuliani and Bloomberg.
Well,
and
that's,
some of the things
who knows? That's a longer discussion.
Right.
Okay.
All right. In Minnesota, Blake's Upper School is opening bathrooms that say all genders welcome, one of the first in Minnesota to do so. The Avalon School, a charter school in St. Paul, is also planning to do that. to, to make it easier for transgender people to go to the bathroom.
As gender becomes more fluid and less binary. Cute story this week. There was something that was called a leaked Taco Bell ad that turned out in the end not to be an official Taco Bell ad.
Oh, why'd you have to tell them that beforehand?
Sorry.
It's so realistic.
It is. So let's take a look at it, and then we'll talk more about it.
The Taco Bell
gay ad.
There we go.
I wonder what else we could fit in before work.
Where's Ben and Dave?
Taco Bell, anyone?
Yes.
Pack your morning with Taco Bell Steak and Egg AM Crunch Wrap with a hash brown inside. Get a whole breakfast in one hand.
No, I don't think they were trying to be realistic gay people.
Oh, come on, it was cute.
Oh, okay.
It was a play on stereotypes, but it was very cute. And it looked like a real Taco Bell ad.
So here's the report from corporate. They didn't create it. They are glad the makers share their enthusiasm for a Taco Bell breakfast. They don't condone unauthorized use of their intellectual property, but they're impressed with their work and open to meeting with them.
So maybe you will see that as an official Taco Bell ad.
All right.
I thought it was cute.
Okay. A lot of international news.
A lot of international news. That's where the action is as things are quiet here around Christmas and New Year's.
Well, let's start with Egypt. Well,
we've been talking for the last couple of years about the crackdown on particularly the gay community in Egypt and the arrests of administration officials, cops, going into bathhouses, going into people's homes. And there was a particular incident almost a year ago where...
Actually, you talk about the 8 men in September?
Yes.
Who were in September, these 8 men were arrested for being at a gay wedding video.
Yeah.
They had their sentences cut from 3 years to 1 year by
an
appeals court. This is the way they bring people into court in Egypt. They do it in Russia, too, there like that. By an appeals court. Their families had been expecting an acquittal and screamed and wept when the new sentences were pronounced. One sister of one of the defendants screaming, "His future is finished." The defense will appeal further. They deny that the men are gay. The charge of debauchery was dropped after invasive anal exams showed that the men had not had anal sex. Which is not illegal. Which is not illegal in Egypt anyway.
Yeah. They still have to serve another year is the problem.
At the moment.
And yes, the new case is that the cops arrested a transgender woman who put some videos of herself dancing in lingerie on YouTube. They arrested her and her roommate, who was not in the videos.
Calling her the most dangerous she-male in Egypt in the papers. This is really horrendous.
They described her as engaging in hardcore sadistic sex.
Well, police took her cell phone, and now everybody's worried about her contacts being arrested. Yeah. And her roommate, who I guess has gotten out, said, "I will leave Egypt soon. Hard days are definitely coming." But there is one good piece of news from Egypt, and that the fake right-wing journalist Mona Araki, who precipitated the raid on the Cairo bathhouse that led to the arrest of 26 men, was fired from her position as the head of a Swiss film festival. And the out-gay German MP, Volker Beck, says the U.S. and Europe should take these persecuted people in as refugees from places like Egypt.
Because things really are going into a big divide. Things are getting really worse in the bad countries and better in the good countries. But the bad countries, it is really getting grim there. Now, is this the hitting bottom before things start to get better eventually? I hope so. But It's really bad in places like Egypt.
Let's see what happens in the Gambia, because they arrested 3 men on suspicion of homosexuality there, paraded them on the TV news, wanted to sentence them to life in prison, and a minister goes on television and says, I need your help in the public to identify all the homosexuals so we can round them all up and put them all in life in prison. The U.S. dropped a free trade agreement with the Gambia.
Dropped them from special trade status in the African Growth and Opportunity Act of 2000.
We had been letting them export stuff to us for to the tune of $37 million duty-free. So, you know, some action is being taken.
Well, given
on the other hand, we still want to do the Pacific Trade Act with the Sultan of Brunei.
Yeah, well. And that's the thing. It is so standard for us to put business above any human rights considerations, and we do give special trade status to horrible human rights violators all over the world. So to have us step back in supporting the Gambia in this way is amazing. What the U.S. said was that the country had exercised no progress on human rights, the rule of law, political pluralism, or the right to due process. And this was specifically in reference to the LGBT community, but across the board for all the population of the Gambia.
Well, some of the human rights activists in the Gambia are saying things like, thank goodness somebody's finally paying attention to human rights in general here because of the gay issue.
Right.
Imagine that.
Well, the White House met with Gambian activists, so that was good. Now, there continues this debate over Israel. An ad in the New York Times attempted by right-wingers, attempted to portray Israel as friendly to gays.
And saying nobody says anything about how anti-gay Iran and ISIS and all these places are. You don't watch Gay USA. We're on the case there.
We certainly do.
We're anti-ISIS.
And again, this is where the term pinkwashing, I think, originated, because the idea is that Israel trumpets its treatment of LGBT people, which, by the way, is mixed. You know, they do have some very enlightened attitudes in some parts of the population and country, but the Orthodox are not getting on board with the gay.
But we report the good things they do, including the fact that the defense forces in Israel announced a new policy to assist transgender teens, starting with their first draft notice when they're pretty young.
And they say they have 6 transgender soldiers in the armed forces now, which is more than the United States will claim.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and Tel Aviv is having a 2-week Pink Winter Festival for gays right now. But all of this begs the question of what Israel is doing as a country in its treatment of Palestinians and others.
Yes.
It's not easy there.
I'm pretty hard on the Pope, but I have to say I was very impressed by his excoriating the Curia at their meeting, reading them the riot
you
act.
like that.
I did. Now, Francis, all you need to do is dismantle the patriarchal structure that is the source of the evil in the church that you are the head of. Got it? Okay? You want to talk hard to them? I'm talking hard to you, Francis.
Well, given how I think it's dangerous to be a pope with the colleagues there in the Vatican,
taster.
I think he's gone a long way in these
We're not kidding.
statements. No, we're not.
Oh, the one who was killed
was
a guy named Pope John Paul I. He lasted 1 month in 1978 or 9, and 1 month. And one of his public statements at that time was, God our Father and God our Mother. You know, he says, in fact, more so our mother. Well, that's enough to get you killed in the Catholic Church. Well, it probably was he was uncovering the bank scandals, according to the Godfather 3.
And then we like to say he was succeeded by Pope Ringo George. Sorry, you have to remember the Beatles.
You do.
Taiwan news. A Taiwan activist has sued for marriage rights in the courts as the legislature continues to debate it.
He's been doing this for 30 years, but now he's got, he wants to marry his male partner. He's now backed by more than a dozen lawyers and a movement group.
Yeah. And a big pop star, Jolin Chai, who is very, very popular in Taiwan.
A picture of this.
Has made a new music video. She's on the left there, I believe, portraying a lesbian couple getting married and engaging in this woman-to-woman kiss, which, of course, is not a common image in Taiwan. It's not even that common here. This is her contribution to the fight for marriage equality, and very powerful.
And I want to pay tribute to Bill Ballman, who was our associate producer, who really keeps us up on what's going on over there. And it's his birthday, December 31st. Happy birthday, Bill.
Yes, happy birthday, Bill, and thank you. The music video portrays a real-life story of a lesbian couple who'd been together for 30 years, and one went into the hospital and the other couldn't sign the surgery consent because they were technically not related. And so that, and I think one of the real ones is at the end of the music video. It looked like her. Also in Taiwan, another advance, they have relaxed the rules around changing gender ID to not require surgery, which seems to be the way a lot of jurisdictions are going.
Conchita Wurst, the drag star who won the Eurovision contest, wants to meet Vladimir Putin. Wurst said, "I have many fans in Russia," wants to play a gig there, said, "The desire for respect unites Putin with minorities." It's a very strange quote.
Putin has been very anti-Conchita.
Putin's press secretary laughed off the idea of a meeting, but Wurst has met with UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, who's very pro-gay.
Not only are things going bad for the LGBT community in Egypt and surrounding countries, but in Indonesia, things are not looking good either. The famous Aceh province in Indonesia has now adopted Sharia law. And
100 lashes for gay sex over there. They were given permission to do this under a peace agreement.
And the LGBT community is going underground.
But wait a minute. Authorities there say gay people can live together if they don't have sex. That's what they said.
It's just like the FDA and their blood rules.
And you can have sex now because they're not going to enforce the law until the end of 2015.
Okay,
but
you got a year.
You got a year to get out.
Yeah.
So in the United Kingdom, even though Sir Elton John married David Furnish, David does not get a title. Had Sir Elton married a woman, she would be Lady John. If a titled woman marries a man, however, he doesn't get a title either. But sexism still prevails in the English class system.
Very confusing.
And then there's Scotland, where the same-sex marriages, new same-sex marriages got underway, because if you had a civil partnership, you could have converted it by now. They got underway in Scotland on New Year's Eve, the Scottish holiday of Hogmanay. The First Minister is going to participate in some of the ceremonies there. And then I read, oh, by the way, in the United Kingdom, same-sex marriage is still not legal in Northern Ireland and the Crown dependencies of Jersey, Guernsey, and the Isle of Man. Now, the former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond, who led the fight for independence, which didn't win, he's going to run for the UK Parliament, and he was challenged. He's going to be challenged by an out-gay member of the United Kingdom Independence Party, the UKIP.
Aren't they the right-wing party?
The complete right-wing party. This guy, David Coburn, opposes same-sex marriage, which he says is just for some queen who wants to dress in a bridal frock and in a big mustache and dance up the aisle to the village people. An anti-gay, out-gay, gay candidate. So being gay is not enough to, I mean, maybe, I assume the Victory Fund would not support him in his efforts.
Don't be so sure. But we don't have to worry about that. Different countries.
All right.
All right. All right. So I'd like to move on to another really moving video that we came across this week. It's a movie that's playing online called The Pearl of Africa in 7 parts, and we're going to show you part 1, which is about 5.5 minutes. It is the story of an out transgender woman in, wait for it, Uganda, Cleo. And this is her story. She's made this 7-part movie, The Pearl of Africa. It's quite transfixing and shows you the reality of life in Uganda.
We talk about it all the time, but now
Right.
you can see it.
So here is part 1 of Cleo's story, The Pearl of Africa.
We pray, Father, that you protect us, Father. We pray, Father, that you give us life.
There are so many times I wanted to commit suicide, there are so many times I wanted to die. It was very sad. I was alone. I cannot imagine another person going through what I went through.
For those who left us,
Viva the trans community! Viva! Viva!
I was born here, a land with beautiful mountains and deep dark forests, home to wild animals like the golden lion and elephant grey. A country blessed with diversity in ethnicity, gender, flora, fauna. Yet in all this richness, as a people and as a nation, we still struggle to recognize and appreciate this diversity. Instead, our people have left all this for dead.
Thousands of anti-gay protesters demonstrate in Jinja, Uganda, in support of a bill proposing life imprisonment for homosexuals.
We shall have a war with the homosexual lobby in the world.
Just a day after the controversial anti-gay bill was signed into law, headlines such as this one, which reads, "Exposed," on a newspaper in Uganda called Red Pepper, hit the streets. Uganda's 200 top homos named.
On Friday of the week the bill was passed, I was on the front page of the Red Paper. I officially lost my job and several of my family friends, fearing for their safety, abandoned me. For the past month and a half, we have been living behind a closed gate, closed windows, keeping on a very down low. People go hungry for days, and if the mom doesn't get them, the hunger and the lack of access to antiretrovirals will surely kill them. I guess you're also going to ask him. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So do you have to look in the camera?
No, you can avoid looking into the camera.
Okay. I met Nelly through high school. He was reluctant because he wasn't sure what he was feeling, because he knew he wasn't gay, he knew he was into girls, but he really didn't know why he was feeling this way towards me. So yeah, we met again this year. I was hanging out with my girls, and then who do I see? It was Nelly just across the table with his friends. And I look at this person and it seems so familiar, but I'm like, could it be him? But then he's looking at someone who looks different. So I look at him and then I say, Nelly, and then he's like, yeah. Him saying that I had transitioned made it seem easier for us to actually start a relationship.
We know that homosexuality is a human right, but also we need to appreciate the fact that it is not a human right across the world, and certainly in Uganda, we don't take it as a human right.
I've been attacked more than once. What happens is that you lose self-esteem, you get depressed, you lose confidence, and you're basically a dead person living waiting to actually die. I've always known like Thailand is the heaven for transgender people. They are fully accepted. They have these nice, relatively cheap daughters that you can go for transitioning, for having surgery and all that. In as much as I'm making plans for it, I'm still trying to wrap my fingers around it. I'm still trying to accept it.
Hi, thanks for watching the first episode of The Pearl of Africa. If you're interested...
Yeah.
So yes, that was chapter 1. There are going to be 7 chapters. The Pearl of Africa, available free on YouTube.
I'll include the link in my email this week. And if you want to be on our email list to receive weekly program previews, just write to me at andyhum@aol.com. I haven't given up that AOL account. I should, I know.
Moving on, we have been discussing in the last couple of weeks the FDA proposal to change its rules on blood donations by men who have sex with men from, you know, if you've had sex with another man since 1977 to if you've had it in the last year, which, you know, disqualifies 90% of the gay male population. Senator Elizabeth Warren weighed in on this week and called it discriminatory and said the FDA should have the courage to set policies based on science.
Well, what possible rationale do they give at this point?
For this one-year business?
Yeah.
It's a high-risk population. We can't take the chance, even though we screen every pint of blood donated, even though the window is down to about 9 days before antibodies appear,
some
or the virus.
Some people go in and lie because,
of course,
because you're at a blood drive at your place of work, you're not out, you don't want to say you're gay, so you just give the blood anyway. So
it's crazy.
I mean, look, if you are at risk and you had a suspicious contact within the last couple of weeks that could possibly not be detected, then you ought to say something. But otherwise, just go ahead and give blood.
It's a double standard. It is stigmatizing. It's bad.
Right. In Philadelphia, they did a protest at the FDA office there, the groups, the AIDS groups.
Even the American Red Cross is against this and in favor of a risk-based system.
Well, speaking of Israel, they're following the U.S. lead, and they're kind of doing something similar. Not all the way, but just like that.
All right. Entertainment news. Well, this movie, The Interview, this Seth Rogen, James Franco movie, I haven't watched it. I don't know if you have.
I did.
You watched the whole movie?
The whole, no. I saw the scene with Eminem.
Yes, me
being
too.
interviewed by a James Franco character.
Now, my question, first of all, is the movie called The Interview based on the fact that this interview is in there?
I have no idea.
I don't know. But this scene is actually quite amusing. Except that James Franco is so over-the-top stupid in it that was a little hard to watch. But
he's playing a character.
He's playing a character, and Eminem is being interviewed by James Franco's character, and they're talking about how people sort of fight who they are by exhibiting bigotry or whatever in their performance.
So Eminem says, "Well, I'm gay."
I did. Surely you should understand that because I did those homophobic lyrics, it's because I'm gay.
And he says it, he does it totally deadpan, very convincingly. You trying to tell us something? What's his name? Marshall Mathers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Slim Shady.
All right.
So then the control room, Seth Rogen, they all go crazy. What did he just say? What did he just say? And then it's all about, did Eminem just come out? And he sits there and continues to talk about how, yes, I'm surprised you didn't guess this because of the lyrics I did. And sure, I'm gay and blah, blah, blah.
And his agent is going crazy.
Well, Eminem's performance is quite amusing and excellent. Everything around it, I think, is really obnoxious. It didn't make me want to see the movie.
Yes, despite
but it
my
did,
support for free expression.
Well, it did. He said, you know, I've been playing gay peekaboo. I've been leaving a trail of gay breadcrumbs. So that was all very funny. But you can see this clip on YouTube. We'd show you that, but it's so full of obscenities and curse words that we can't outrun it.
This is a family show.
Yeah.
Now, you all remember the movie Brokeback Mountain. It was originally a story in The New Yorker by Annie Proulx. And she says now that she's sorry she wrote it. She says, most people misunderstand it. She said, it isn't about Jack and Ennis, the couple. It's about homophobia, not two cowboys. She says, readers rewrite the story to give Ennis new boyfriends after Jack is killed, and she's just sick of it. She says she's had to lock her gate and things, people sending her things all the time she doesn't, want and everything. But on the other hand, she is writing the libretto for the opera based on it.
We'll look forward to that.
Perhaps a more complex view than I'm doing this from news accounts.
Yeah. I watched the interview with Michael Sam on the
Oprah Winfrey Network.
Yes, OWN. It was actually a 90-minute documentary followed by a half-hour interview of Michael with Oprah.
I started to watch it. How did it turn out?
He came out.
Ah.
Yeah. But it was interesting, and it was nice because you got an extended period of listening to him talk about himself personally instead of the sort of sensationalized news cuts. And he talked also about the kiss when he was drafted and the cake smashing in the face and how all that was sensationalized, and it showed a lot of him crying when he was drafted.
He's still with the boyfriend?
Seems to be. Good. Certainly was in this piece.
That's nice to hear.
And he was enormously likable and smart and appealing and just great to listen to. And he claims he's still trying to play in the NFL. And it does, you've always argued it was homophobia that got rid of him. I was a little more, well, maybe he isn't big enough or fast enough to play in the NFL. He certainly had a good record in preseason and in his work on the practice teams. So we'll see.
It was not my judgment. This was the judgment of people who studied what happened to people similarly situated with his record and size and everything else and all that other kind of stuff and how far they advanced.
Well, the other thing is so many people have been injured and banged up in this season. I keep expecting to hear that he's been picked up, but not yet.
I hope to hear that the game will be banned. No, seriously.
Not before I win the football pool again this year, which I did last year.
I saw the movie
playoffs.
Selma, about the Selma March, Dr. Martin Luther King, back in 1965. He's pressing for the Voting Rights Act. Mm-hmm. He's gotten the Civil Rights Act. He's pressing for the Voting Rights Act. At the end of the, and he wins, of course, but at the end of the movie, they don't say it's practically been repealed by the Supreme Court.
We saw other movies. We'll tell you more about them next week. But meanwhile, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody. We'll see you next year. Some of us are seeing us.
Thank you for your support all along.
Thank you.
And we'll keep doing this.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.